Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Gadadhara Sivasadi Gauravatanda.
Thank you very much, Damodaran Prabhu. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Shamade, thank you so much. Okay.
Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namani. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Veshitani. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gauravakta. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam pangam nangayate giram yat kripatamaham vande Shri Gurum Dinadarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. So Hare Krishna to all the devotees here. Today we are going to begin a new section of the Bhagavad Gita, which is the last section, which is typically known as Jnana Yoga. So that is chapters 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. Before we do that, we can do a quick review of chapter 12. Right. Chapter 12 was called Bhakti Yoga, and it was divided into 3 sections. It's one of the smaller chapters. It just has 20 shlokas in it. So after seeing the cosmic form of the Lord, Arjuna actually asks a question here in the 12th chapter, which is superior and which is better, right? Is it worshipping the form of the Lord or worshipping the Brahman feature of the Lord? When we say the Brahman feature, we are talking about the Lord with an attribute where he does not have a form. So what is Krishna's response to this question of Arjuna? Is Krishna saying worship of Brahman, or is Krishna saying worship of the personal form is better and superior? What is Krishna's response to Arjuna's question? Should we worship the Lord with his form, or should we worship the formless? Right? Krishna says, worshipping the form is better and more superior than anything else. Okay. So if the Lord has a spiritual form, when he comes to this earthly planet or any of the universes, does he still have his spiritual form, or does he change his clothes and wear a material body? Does the Lord change his form when he comes? He maintains his spiritual body. The Lord does not take a material body at all. Do we take a material body, or have we come down with our spiritual bodies when we come into the universe? We have a material body. That's right. The material body is given to us so that we can satisfy whatever desires that we have. So hence, the material body is temporary. Do we have a spiritual body? Do all of us have a spiritual body? Yes, we have a spiritual body, but that spiritual body we can get back only when we go back to the spiritual world. Because we've left the spiritual world, we actually have a material body. So we also talked about the difference between the formless worship and worshipping with the form. When you worship someone with the form, you can develop an attachment to them. You can offer personal service. You can have a relationship. You cannot have a relationship when you're focused on Brahman realization, right? Because how do you have a relationship? Relationship means two entities, and there is back and forth between the two entities, to the two personalities. And that is what Krishna is prioritizing for us. Essentially, he's saying Bhakti Yoga means you are worshipping the form of the Lord. And how many different forms can we worship based on our recollection of the 11th chapter? One is the two-handed form. Then we can worship the four-handed form. We can also worship the Virat Rupa, although the Virat Rupa is temporary. It exists only as long as the universe exists. So once the universes are wound up, then the cosmic form also winds up. It is not there anymore. Yes. Then we talked about the two different types of Nyaya, Markata Kishora Nyaya and Marjara Kishora Nyaya. Which one is emphasized in ISKCON Vaishnava philosophy? The cat or the monkey? The kitten and the cat, yes. Because as long as the kitten cries out, the cat will come and pick up the kitten and hold it safely in its mouth. The kitten need not worry. So similarly, in Bhakti Yoga, we believe that we have to call out. We have to call out to the Lord. And if we call out to the Lord, then the Lord will come and pick us up. We don't have to. Whereas in Markata Kishora Nyaya, the baby monkey has to hold on its own. The mother monkey is not going to help because the mother monkey is preoccupied. So it's up to the baby monkey to hold on to the mother, which was propounded by Vedanta Desikar. Yeah. So anyway, we prefer the approach of the kitten and the cat because we are safe. The Lord is always protecting his devotees, and he has said that multiple times. So then we talked about the yoga ladder. What is the topmost of the yoga ladder? Where we are using our mind and intelligence to always think of Krishna and to always offer our services to Krishna. The second rung of the ladder is sadhana bhakti. In sadhana bhakti, you follow certain rules and regulations until you reach the stage of prema bhakti, pure love for the Supreme Lord. If you can't do that, then Krishna says, work for me. If you can't do that, then Krishna says, offer the results of your work to me. If you can't do that, then you can do Jnana Yoga, you can do Dhyana Yoga, and you can engage yourself in Karma Kanda also. So it is a descending ladder with the topmost being Kevala Bhakti or Ananya Bhakti, which is uncontaminated pure devotion. But to reach that stage of pure devotion, we have to start with sadhana bhakti. Without sadhana bhakti, we cannot make progress to Kevala Bhakti. So that is what we discussed yesterday. And Krishna says that those devotees who have certain characteristics, certain attributes, they are very dear to him. So that was from Shlokas 13 all the way to Shloka 20. 8 shlokas, where every shloka ends with Krishna saying, such a devotee is very dear to me. Such a devotee is very dear to me. And then in the 28th shloka, Krishna says, such a devotee is very, very dear to me. So the single word summary for yesterday's chapter was manual. or we can say Krishna Prema indicators. You know, we use the word KPI in the corporate world. KPI stands for key performance indicators, right? You could say here it's Krishna Prema indicators. How do you know that the Lord really loves you? When you do a certain set, when you exhibit a certain set of characteristics, you can say the Lord really loves you and that you are very, very dear to Him. So with that, we begin the 13th chapter. This section is called the Jnana Yoga section. However, it is the Jnana that is relevant and necessary for us to perform bhakti. Okay. So Krishna is not talking about study of the Vedic scriptures in terms of Jnana Yoga here. Yes, there is definitely some elements of Sankhya philosophy coming in this particular section, but it is essentially to tell you how to use this jnana to perform your bhakti better. So the 13th chapter begins with Arjuna asking some intelligent questions. So he's been listening. In the 12th chapter, he has not asked any question other than which is better, worship of form or worship of forms. So in response to Arjuna's 6 questions, Krishna responds to those 6 questions. So let's find out what those 6 questions are from Arjuna. So here is the first shloka in the 13th chapter. Arjuna uvacha prakritim purusham chaiva kshetram kshetrajnameva cha etad veditumichhami jnanam jneyam cha keshava. Arjuna said, "Oh my dear Krishna, I wish to know about Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, and the field and the knower of the field, and of knowledge and the object of knowledge." So there are 6 terms Arjuna is asking for definitions and explanations. Prakriti and Purusha, what are they? Kshetram, Kshetra and Kshetrajna. What is Kshetra and who is Kshetrajna? Then Jnanam and Jneyam. So 6 terms, Prakriti, Purusha, Kshetra, Kshetrajna, Jnana and Jneyam. So let us see. Prakriti means nature. Purusha means the enjoyer. Purusha enjoys Prakriti. That's just the way the cosmos has been designed, where Purusha enjoys Prakriti. Now, Purusha here does not necessarily mean male or female, although you could think of it in that context for easier understanding. However, it just means that the Jivatma is trying to be the enjoyer of Mother Nature. Then Kshetra and Kshetrajna. Kshetra is field. What field? This particular body. The knower of the field. Who knows this field? The person who's operating this body. One is the soul, and the other knower is the super soul. And then what is the difference between knowledge and realized knowledge or wisdom? Jnana and Jneyam. So, a little quiz for you. Take a look at these pictures. You have to match 1, 2, 3 to ABC. So you should pair the number 1 with an alphabet on the right. Pair number 2 with alphabet on the right. And pair number 3 with alphabet on the right. So what do you think is the pairing here? You can put your response in the chat. One goes with what? One is a field. Two is a farmer. Three is the king. Okay. One is paired with Paramatma. Body is paired with the king. One is B. Two is C. And three is A. Okay, so Ravi Prabhu has got it right. One is B. Two is C. And three is A. So let's understand how we do this analogy. So we said one is B. Two is C. Three is A. Okay. So the field is the body. The farmer is the soul who's trying to operate the body, who's operating the field. And the king is the Paramatma, who's witnessing everything. So when you are given a field, the farmer, does he have a choice to grow whatever he wants? Farmer has a choice or not? With whatever land he has, he can grow whatever crops he wants, correct? He can grow crops that yield more. He can grow crops that give fruits very quickly. He can grow crops that take a long time to grow, but yield a lot of money. So the farmer can decide how he wants to use his land. And that he does using his intelligence. Similarly, the soul can decide how to utilize this body. But what is the problem? The body is dominating the soul. The mind and intelligence is trying to tell the soul what to do and what not to do. Actually, the mind and intelligence should be subservient to the soul. Therefore, if the soul is directed properly, then the soul will utilize the body properly for the right thing. And ultimately, both the land and the farmer have to please the king. So both the body and the soul have to be used to please Paramatma. So if the soul uses the body to please Paramatma, then we are good. If the farmer grows opium products that the king has banned, then he's in trouble. Isn't he? If the farmer grows something that is banned, if he gets caught, will he be in trouble or not? So similarly, if the body is not used in the service of Krishna, then Krishna becomes displeased. So hence, the king here is equivalent to the super soul. So that means the soul must utilize the body, mind, intelligence, everything in the service of Krishna first. Then Krishna is pleased. It is not that the king does not want the farmer to be successful, or rich, or wealthy, It is not that Krishna does not want you to have all the basic necessities that you need in life. So certainly you can utilize your body for basic necessities. But if you utilize your body only for necessities and more than necessities and increase it to luxuries, then Krishna is not going to be very happy. So the message for us here is that because Krishna has given us the body, he owns it. Krishna has given us the mind and intelligence, he owns it. Krishna also owns the soul. So if Krishna owns everything, then everything should be used in his service. Therefore, using the body for spiritual advancement is like using the land for the most beneficial crops. This will give you the maximum benefits. So if I knew everything, why would I go to a doctor? It is because I do not know how the body really operates. I actually have to reach out to someone who is specialized in the study of the human body. So when something is wrong with my body, I do not understand what is wrong with it. Therefore, I go to people who have specialized in understanding this human body to get healed. We do not know how what we eat is getting digested. We do not know what elements are getting digested and absorbed and what elements are getting rejected in our body. We don't know what is being transported in the blood. The brain is made of such fine tissues, but we really do not know how it operates and how it fires. But perhaps somebody who has studied the brain can help us if something is wrong or if there is something problematic there. So just like a doctor specializes in the human body and different people specialize in different topics and subjects, but the point is that the super soul knows everything. So the super soul knows everything that all the souls are doing, not just in this universe, but in all of the universes. So Krishna knows everything. That is the first important aspect we need to understand about the super soul. So many people can claim to be God, but do they really understand your pains, your pleasure, your suffering, what you're thinking, what you plan to do? Because Krishna is the owner, the original owner of your body and your soul. We are supposed to use it in his service. So he's the original owner, we are just a secondary owner. The body also doesn't belong to us. The body is just a special machinery given to you to help you go back to Krishna, especially the human body. The human body is very, very rare. Among 8.4 million species, only 4 lakh species are human species. We have transmigrated and come to the human form after many millions of years. So we should not waste this human form of life. The super soul is always superior because we've already read that the Lord is perfect. There is no defect in the Lord. Whereas the soul, because it is occupying a physical body, he can continue to make mistakes and fall further and further down into lower levels of consciousness. Therefore, in that sense, the soul is always inferior to the super soul. The super soul is always superior to the soul. So if we have to look at this particular slide, in order to get wisdom, we need to understand 3 topics. We need to understand what this body is. We need to understand the person occupying this body, which is the soul, and also another superior personality also witnessing what the soul is doing as Paramatma. So wisdom means understanding the difference between matter and spirit and understanding the relationship between Jivatma and Paramatma. That is actually wisdom. How is wisdom obtained? Many people may think, oh, I'm very, very well educated. I can figure things out for myself. But if you're proud of your education, that is not a sign of spiritual growth. So the sign of spiritual growth is if we understand Krishna, then Krishna thinks we are very wise. So you can be a PhD in all kinds of subjects, but if you don't know Krishna, Krishna thinks you're spiritually illiterate. So it's quite a contradiction that we can be materially very, very literate. And in the Lord's eyes, you are not making any impressions on him when you're materially highly qualified. What is Krishna impressed by? Your spiritual qualities, your qualifications, your submissiveness, your humility, your eagerness to hear, your eagerness to listen, your eagerness to follow instructions. That is what Krishna is observing you keenly. So if we don't understand Krishna, then both Guru and Krishna consider you to be spiritually illiterate. So real wisdom means asking, why did I get this body? Who am I? What am I supposed to do? And how do I learn this knowledge so that I can go back to the spiritual world? So this is a beautiful photo of Prabhupada with his spiritual master, his Divine Grace, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. When he met him for the first time in Kolkata, in a place called the Ulta Danga, Prabhupada really did not want to meet any sannyasi because his father would invite many sannyasis at home. And Prabhupada as a child had witnessed that some of these people who were wearing externally religious garbs were actually smoking and doing all kinds of other nonsense things. So Prabhupada had actually lost faith in saints growing up. Although Prabhupada was brought up in a very pious family, in a Vaishnava family, so much so that his father gave him his own deities to worship at the age of 5 or 6. His father gave him Radha Krishna deities to worship. And so Prabhupada recollects that he used to imitate his father. The way his father was worshipping every day at home, he would just imitate his father. In this way, Prabhupada says he got very attached to his own deities that his father had given him. So it's not that Prabhupada did not grow up in a pious family. He grew up in a very pious family, not just a pious family, a Vaishnava family. So he was brought up as a Vaishnava from a very young age. But at the same time, because his father was so generous and always had many saints over home, Prabhupada, as he was growing up, witnessed that some of these saints did not have the highest of characters. So one day his friend tells him, come on, let's go. There is a great personality. At this time, Prabhupada was studying in college, although he was already married and he had his first child. This child was quite young. But Prabhupada was still studying. In those days, you got married at a very young age. Right? So Prabhupada was in college and he already had a child. So he said, no, I'm not interested. I don't want to see any Swamiji. I'm not interested. And his friend said, no, you will like this Swamiji very much. And Prabhupada said, no, I'm really not interested. I've seen enough of them. I'm disgusted with them. At that time, Prabhupada was also very, very keen about this independence movement, So when Prabhupada was in college, we were being ruled by the British. So India did not have its freedom at the time. We had an external country take over our country. So Prabhupada was very much focused on the freedom movement. He was a follower of Mahatma Gandhi, etc. But because his friend insisted, the two of them went to this Ulta Danga location. And there, for the first time, Prabhupada met his spiritual master. And immediately his spiritual master said two things. He looked at Prabhupada directly and he said, "You are well educated. You are really young. You should preach in English. And you should take this message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the West." Prabhupada heard very carefully what his spiritual master was saying. He had not yet accepted him as a spiritual master. This was the first meeting. So Prabhupada asks a very relevant question. He asked his spiritual master, "You are saying, we have to perform bhakti and all of this, but why would anybody perform bhakti when we are subjugated by the British?" Prabhupada asked his spiritual master, "None of us are independent. We are subjugated by the British. So what makes you think that practicing bhakti is the topmost priority rather than getting freedom from this British rule?" So what was Prabhupada's question? Is freedom from British rule, is that not more important than freedom from the cycle of birth and death? Ultimately, that was the question. Because his spiritual master was talking about freedom from birth and death. To which his spiritual master responded by saying, "Today it will be the British. Tomorrow it will be somebody else. So rulers will come and go. They will change. It may not be to our liking. But guess what? If you don't focus on the fact that you are spirit soul, then you are in a much worse situation because you're going to take birth again and again and you're trapped in this prison." So his spiritual master explained to him, this external prison that you're worried about, anyway, that is temporary. You worry about the internal prison of having taken so many births, accumulated so many lifetimes of karma for which you are suffering again and again and again. So essentially, the Guru explains to the disciple, the suffering that you are talking about will go on regardless. You cannot change it and I cannot change it. But our real suffering is that we have identified with this body. Therefore, if you really want to understand what is the truth, you have to approach a spiritual master and hear from. So this is a picture of Prabhupada here. And that's his spiritual master. And when Prabhupada heard this answer from the lips of his guru, actually Prabhupada says in that first meeting, in my heart, I already accepted him as guru. Because his answers were so precise and to the point, and such clarity was there in how his spiritual master gave answers. Prabhupada woke up and realized this freedom struggle is just nonsensical. You overthrow one government, another government will come and be even more corrupt. And another government will come and be even more corrupt. That is what his spiritual master told him. We want to actually overthrow Maya. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, we are on a war path with Maya. We are all fighting Maya. She is the greatest challenger for us. She is keeping us away from Krishna because we want to be kept away from Krishna. So to define knowledge, Krishna defines knowledge in these shlokas 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Out of that, we have selected things that are very pertinent. You can go back and read. Remember, Prakriti and Purusha, Kshetra and Kshetrajna, Jnana and Jnana. These are the 6 topics that Arjuna wants to understand better. So this is jnana. So the most important qualifications is ananya yogena, uninterrupted, unadulterated bhakti. This is what Krishna is saying. The most important qualification he sees in you is, are you performing uninterrupted bhakti? Unadulterated means you really don't want anything from Krishna. You are just doing bhakti because you love him. So that's the most important qualification. What is the essential qualification? Acharya upasana. Upa means to be close, to be seated close to a spiritual master. In essence, this means being ready to accept the instructions of a spiritual master. Just before this class, I had a call with the senior devotee who's taking the Bhakti Vaibhav class. And he was giving me feedback on my presentation. Each of us have to select a topic and give a class as a student. So my topic was the qualifications of a devotee exemplified by Narada Muni. How can we use Narada Muni, and how do we understand how he became Narada Muni? Because in his previous birth, Narada Muni was a child of a maidservant. He did not have a father. And being a maidservant is a pretty lowly position. So Narada Muni in his previous birth as a young boy did not have formal education. He was very simple, but he was very submissive. If his mother said, because the saints had come to stay in an ashram for Chaturmas, so Narada Muni was simply following what his mother wanted. If she said, get up and wash the feet of these great devotees, he would do that. Pick up the plates and wash it, he would do that. See how else you can serve them, he would do that. So he was so submissive, he was ready to follow instructions. He didn't question and say, why I should do that? I'm such a young child, why don't you do it? Why are you engaging me in menial service? Am I not too young to be engaged in menial service? So the qualifications to be a disciple is simplicity, first of all. To not practice duplicity. And to, actually, Prabhupada says in one of the purports and in one of the lectures that he gives on this particular topic of Narada Muni, Prabhupada actually says that the greatest qualification of a disciple is that in front of his spiritual master, he considers himself to be fool number 1. He considers himself to be the most unintelligent and unqualified. And Prabhupada says, an over-intelligent disciple is doomed to fail. He's going to be a disaster. So in front of your spiritual master, you should be humble, simple, submissive, ready to accept what your spiritual master asks you to do. Therefore, having a guru is an essential qualification. Without guru, you cannot reach Krishna. Among other key qualifications Krishna talks about is amanitvam, which is humility. Humility to say, I do not know anything. In front of my spiritual master, I am completely ignorant. Ahimsa. So what does this non-violence mean? It means not to put others in distress. By giving somebody spiritual knowledge, you are saving them from distress. Therefore, the highest form of non-violence, Prabhupada writes in this purport to these shlokas, is to connect somebody else to Krishna. Because then they stop torturing their body, their mind, their intelligence. The soul gets reconnected to Krishna. That is the highest form of non-violence. It really, when I first read that purport, I just read it over and over again because I thought, okay, all along ahimsa meant not killing other jivatmas. But I discovered a new spiritual definition of ahimsa. Ahimsa means connecting another jivatma to Krishna. Then you're practicing non-violence because you're trying to save that soul. So ahimsa is not just about bodily violence. I think somebody asked a question, the spiritual suicide. So helping others to stop themselves from committing spiritual suicide is the greatest form of ahimsa. Therefore, preaching, Prabhupada says, is the essence. Atma vinigraha and self-control. During the COVID times, we were all told that we had to distance ourselves from others. Social distancing was conducted so that we could avoid getting infected. So some amount of self-control was necessary and consciousness was necessary. Because we are keen not to infect ourselves, we maintain the social distance. In the spiritual parlance, how do you maintain social distancing? We have to distance ourselves from those who are chasing money, wealth, fame, knowledge, because they will contaminate us. So this social distancing is necessary even in spiritual life. Because if we surround ourselves with people who are enjoying their senses, we will get contaminated. Because we have not developed that resilience or the immunity. Because the first acceptance for a disciple is, I am weak and I have to protect myself. And do exactly what the spiritual master asks. Right? So the central point here is that if you don't know Krishna, then you know nothing. If you don't know who's Krishna and what your relationship with him is, then you're not very intelligent. You're not a very wise person. So this wisdom, you have to approach a spiritual master and be ready to follow his instructions. One more thing that Narada Muni did is that in one of the shlokas, he himself says, as a young boy, he received the causeless mercy of the other devotees. And he ate the uchishta of the Bhagavatas that were there after asking their permission. It is said that to eat the remnants of your guru is the fastest way to get to Krishna because you get their mercy directly. So having the uchishta of your spiritual master, of your Diksha Guru, is very much needed for us. So Narada Muni did not say, oh, that is contaminated, that has their spit, and I don't want to eat that. He wanted to honor their uchishta because he knew what it meant. It meant purification. So in one of the lectures that Prabhupada gives on this particular Narada Muni pastime of how he becomes Narada Muni, he says, in 4 months, because this Bhakti Vedantists had come to the ashram for 4 months. In 4 months, from Dasi Putra to Narada Muni. That means if you have the right association and if you serve submissively, you can also become a pure devotee in a matter of months. So from Dasi Putra to Narada Muni in 4 months, meaning the complete transformation had happened for Narada Muni in those 4 months. A short while after the Bhakti Vedantas left, his mother died of a snake bite. And he tells in that conversation that he has with his disciple Srila Vyasadeva that the Lord knew what was in my heart. I wanted to dedicate my life to serving the Supreme Absolute Truth. And the only remaining barrier on that path was my mother. So Narada Muni tells Vyasadeva, when you have a hankering to perform bhakti, the Lord will remove all impediments. In this case, the Lord removed his mother from the picture. And Narada Muni, as a young boy, in his previous life, as a young boy, he goes in search of the truth. He goes to meditate into the forests. And the Lord gives him temporary darshan. And then in his next birth, in the next millennium, he comes as Narada. So this is the trajectory of a devotee. He was simple. He was submissive. He was obedient. He didn't have high-class education. He simply followed the instructions of the Bhakti Vedantis that came to the ashram. So how is wisdom obtained? Here, Prahlad Maharaj is talking to Narsimadev after Lord Narsimha has killed Hiranyakashipu. My dear Lord Narsimadeva, I see there are many saintly persons indeed, but they are interested only in their own deliverance. Not caring for the big cities and towns, they go to the Himalayas or the forest to meditate with vows of silence. Maunavrat. They are not interested in delivering others. As for me, however, I do not wish to be liberated alone, leaving aside all these poor fools and rascals. I know that without Krishna consciousness, without taking shelter of your lotus feet, one cannot be happy. Therefore, I wish to bring them back to shelter at your lotus feet. The mood of a devotee, of a pure devotee, is, I want to help others. The mood of a pure devotee is not, I want to go to the Himalayas and I want to save myself and myself only. Not that there is anything wrong with saving yourself. But the mood of a bhakta is, I have been rescued and now I want to rescue others. So this is what Prahlad Maharaj is telling Lord Narsimadev. Some of your bhaktas have gone to the Himalayas. Their interest is not to help others. Their interest is, I will save myself first. But Prahlad Maharaj is telling Narsimadev, but I am not going to follow in their footsteps. Because if I do that, who will save all these suffering people? I know that people are suffering because they've not taken the shelter of your lotus feet. And I'm taking it as a seva to you that I will bring more souls to your lotus feet. This is actually Nyaya, wisdom. But that's because you followed the instructions of Guru. Prahlad Maharaj never met his Guru. He only heard his Guru as he was sitting in the, wrapped up in the womb of his mother, Khayadu. So what is the ultimate goal of our life? What is the ultimate goal of our life? What are we supposed to do? What's the goal? What is the ultimate goal of our life? To please Krishna, okay? To attain Krishna. Yes, our goal is to go back home. We don't want to be here. We want to go back home. Yeah. Who can teach us this? A bona fide spiritual master coming in a bona fide parampara. They can teach you how to go back home. And then what should be our mood? Our mood should be one of humility and service. Humility and service can guarantee you success, spiritual success. So this is a nice realization. So another simple formula for self-control, that Atma Vinigraha, is to reject anything that hinders spiritual progress. So there are two terms used in Sanskrit. What is Anukul and Pratikul? Anukul means we should accept all instructions that are favorable to practice Krishna consciousness. And Pratikul means we should discard anything that prohibits us or prevents us from making progress in Krishna consciousness. So Anukul Yasya, meaning accepting everything that helps you in Krishna consciousness and rejecting anything that does not help you make any progress. So that brings us to the topic of the soul and super soul in a little bit more detail in this section, 13 to 19. So in the 13th shloka, Krishna is saying, Gyeyam yattat pravakshyami yajna tvam vritamashnuте anadimat param brahma nasattanna sadutchate. I shall now explain the noble, knowing which you will taste the eternal. Brahman, the spirit, beginningless and subordinate to me, lies beyond the cause and effect of this material world. This is also an important shloka. Brahman, the spirit, beginningless and subordinate to me. Krishna is saying the soul is eternal. Even though it is eternal, it is always subordinate to me. And the soul is beyond the cause and effect of this material world. If you have understood this about the soul, then Krishna says this is also wisdom. Remember, we said wisdom means understanding who's the soul, what is the body, who is Paramatma, and the relationship between these. So the characteristics of the soul is that it is eternal. It does not have a birth date and will not have a death date. It is anadi. It has existed as long as Krishna has existed. That means the soul is as old as Krishna. But the soul is always bound to Krishna and it is always dependent on Krishna because Krishna has to supply us with everything. Krishna supplies us with everything in the spiritual world, and even when he puts us in the material world, even there Krishna is supplying us with everything. Therefore, whether in the material world or in the spiritual world, the soul is always dependent on Krishna. But at the same time, the soul is beyond the cause and effect of the material world. In the sense, the soul will always be pure. It is just that when it has occupied a particular yantra or a vehicle, then it is like it gets overcome with contaminated consciousness. So Prabhupada uses the term covered consciousness. Your consciousness becomes covered by the body that the soul particularly occupies. So the thing is, the soul can be perceived. You and I can perceive the soul. How do we know that the soul exists? Because if somebody dies, we always say they have left the body. We never say the soul has died. We always say the soul has left the body. That means we understand that the soul is eternal and it can be perceived. When death happens, we know that the soul has exited the body. But the super soul is not that easy for us to perceive. It is very difficult. But to perceive the super soul, we have to be ready to follow the instructions of spiritual master. Okay. In the 16th shloka, the Lord also describes Paramatma. In the previous shloka that we just read, we read about Jivatma, the Lord talking about the Jivatma. Bahirantascha bhutanam acharam charam evacha sukshmatvat tadavijneyam durastham chantike chatat. The supreme truth exists outside and inside of all living beings, the moving and the non-moving. Because he is subtle, he is beyond the power of the material senses to see or to know. Although far, far away, he is also near to all. It's like a riddle, this shloka. The supreme truth exists outside and inside. How outside? He exists outside in the universe as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. He exists inside all of the Jivatmas as Kshirodakashaya Vishnu. He not only exists in all of the Jivatmas, he also exists in all of the atoms. But he is so subtle, you cannot conceive of him. That means he's subtler than the subtlest. The soul is considered to be subtle. The super soul is even more subtle that with your material faculties, you cannot perceive. Although far, far away, he is also near to all. The soul is far away from you when you are not interested in having a relationship with Paramatma. At the same time, he is there inside you as a witness to everything that you do, so you cannot escape his gaze. But for devotees, he is very close to them. They can perceive the super soul. So you've learnt about the body and the soul, and now Paramatma. Here, what are the characteristics of Paramatma that we just read? That Paramatma is all-pervading. He's inside, outside, everywhere. You know, in that Narsimha Arati we sing, Bahir Narsimha Hridaye Narsimha. Yes, he's inside, he's outside, he's ever. He's everywhere. So the super soul is all-pervading. He's the origin of all senses, but he himself has no material senses. The Lord's senses are all spiritual. But he's the origin of all of the senses of all of the Jivatmas. The Lord is perfect, he has no defects, but he is seated in everyone's heart. In this particular shloka, the Lord is saying, Iti kshetram tata jnanam jneyam choktam samasataha mad bhakta etad vijnaya mad bhava yopapadyate. Thus the field of activities. We said, kshetra is this body. Kshetrajna means the person or the individuals who know this body, which is both the soul and the super soul. So Krishna is summarizing, saying, thus the field of activities, the body, knowledge, and the knowable have been summarily described by me. Only my devotees can understand this thoroughly and thus attain to my nature. So Krishna is saying this topic is actually a difficult topic to understand, but who can understand this well? His devotees. So instead of us trying to be the controller, if we give the control of our life to Krishna, then that will bring us real happiness. So real happiness comes when we allow Krishna to be the supreme controller of our lives. So for example, there is a pastime of this king who ruled over his kingdom very nicely. But somehow or the other, some trouble kept coming his way. And he was feeling very dejected, thinking, can I really continue to rule the kingdom? So many troubles, so many issues. so many people attacking me, criticizing me. It's a tough thing to be in a leadership position. Huh? He was thinking, because of me, this whole country itself is failing. It is better that I give up the kingdom and go to the forest and let somebody else who's more capable take care of the kingdom. So essentially, he was feeling the pressure of being the ruler, and things were not going right. So definitely when things don't go right, one of the first things that you do is you want to quit. So he goes to the forest, and a rishi sees him and he asks, "Who are you and what are you doing here in the forest?" He says, I just gave up my kingdom and I just came into the forest to kind of find some peace of mind. And the rishi says, kingdom means somebody has to rule, right? You cannot just leave a kingdom and then come into the forest. So I will help you. I will take over the kingdom, and from today onwards, you can accept me as the king. This is what the rishi told the king. And the king was very happy. A very pious person is going to rule the kingdom. Everything will be set right. I am in good hands. So Rishi said, okay, you don't go into the forest. I have got some work for you. As a king, I am instructing you now. So the Rishi said, I'll give you some work. And the king was very happy. Very nice. Now somebody is going to engage me in seva. Perfect. I will just be focused on my seva. So the Rishi tells him, you go back and rule the kingdom on my behalf. So the Rishi said, don't forget, the kingdom belongs to me. But I want you to go back to the post of the king and fulfill your responsibilities to me on my behalf. So what happened suddenly? The king, who was feeling the pressure that this is my kingdom, things are not going well. Everything is going topsy-turvy. It's better that I quit. It's too difficult. He worked with such determination, enthusiasm, and commitment. Why? Why do you think the king now was able to do what he was not able to do before? He was a perfect king this time. But the kingdom did not belong to him. What happened? What changed? What changed for the king? So the rishi said, go back and rule, but do it on my behalf. It's not your kingdom anymore. What changed for the king? The ownership. Yes. He was no longer the owner of the kingdom, so he was pressure-free. He was relieved of all the pressure. He was just looking at it as, it's my duty to please and run the kingdom because I don't own the kingdom anymore. It belongs to the rishi. It doesn't belong to me. So the pressure was removed immediately. What was that pressure he put on himself? It is my kingdom. I have to rule it properly. It is my citizens. My citizens should be happy with me. The minute the my went out of the picture, he was relaxed. So similarly, when we do our duties and responsibilities to our family members, to society, we shouldn't think my family and get all fully stressed out. My nation, my society, and get stressed out. Nothing belongs to you. You're going to leave it all behind. So in the same way, if we can simply do our duty and responsibility to please Krishna, Just like the Rishi told the king, work on my behalf. The kingdom doesn't belong to you. Similarly, you are working on behalf of Krishna. Your family doesn't belong to you. They belong to Krishna. And therefore, you are trying your best to serve them, because by serving them nicely, you are going to please Krishna. So when you don't have ownership, there is no pressure. Yes. So if we understand that we have certain duties and responsibilities based on the bodily platform, then we are in the right frame of mind if we are doing it for the pleasure of Krishna. And not that, oh, I have to do this. I have to control my spouse. I have to control my parents. I have to control my children. No. Yeah. You are doing it for the satisfaction and pleasure of Krishna. So there was a man who had a house. The house was vacant. And he thought, since nobody is taking it for rent, I'll just put it up for sale. Like this, he was thinking. He had put an advertisement, but there was no inquiries. The next day, he got the bad news that his house was, that vacant house was on fire. What emotion was he going through? You're saying the house belongs to you. It is vacant. You wanted to sell it. It has not been sold yet. And the house has gone up in flames. How would you feel as the owner? Would you feel dejected, disappointed, disturbed, distressed? You can use all the strong D words. So his son comes up to him and tells him, don't worry, Dad. Yesterday somebody came and purchased the house. How would he feel now? His son said, somebody came and inquired about the house and they purchased it yesterday. How would he feel now? Delighted? Another D word. He would feel relieved, right? Oh my God, that's my property. 1 minute it was on fire. Next minute it doesn't belong to me. It doesn't belong to me anymore. So I need not be stressed out. It belongs to the other person who purchased the property. So I don't have to worry anymore. Then the son told him, he has not paid us yet. Now, how do you think the father would feel? 1 minute property is on fire, it's gone. Next minute, somebody has purchased it. Third minute, payment has not been made. So you can see how your emotions can fluctuate simply based on ownership. Simply based on ownership, your emotions can take you this way and that way. So sometimes you just have to stop and ask yourself, do I really own anything or anyone? But the minute you realize I don't own anything or anyone, the stress is off of your shoulders. You can be relaxed. You can have really good relationships. So if you look at this photo, you can tell me who is actually really enjoying here. On the left is Krishna with all of his cowherd friends. On the right is a gang of friends sitting in a bar. I don't know, maybe they are drinking coffee or I don't know what. Who's the real enjoyer? Who is the real enjoyer? Krishna is the real enjoyer. So what is the difference between enjoyment on the left and enjoyment on the right? What's the difference? Is there a difference in this enjoyment? Yes, our enjoyment is temporary. How much coffee can you drink? How much alcohol can you drink? How long can you smile and be happy like this? All of this is temporary. But when you go back home, you are going to enjoy with Krishna permanently, eternally, blissfully. That is the most important thing that we have to remember. So, this is ultimate enjoyment that we're looking for, is to go back to Krishna and become one of his close associates. So, one day an ISKCON devotee meets a producer. And he had gone to this famous producer to ask for some donation. And the producer asked him, are you really happy you've given up everything in your life and you're leading a life as a brahmachari? Are you really happy? So the producer was very curious, what kind of life you people are living? And obviously, this is a brahmachari living in the temple, given up his family and doing the Lord's work, doing Guru's work. So the producer asked him, are you happy? To which the devotee said, are you happy? And the producer said, yeah, I'm happy. And the devotee asked him, but how are you experiencing happiness? So the producer said, I write songs and create musicals for movies. I do that regularly. That brings me happiness. Then once a week, my friends and I hang out with each other. We dance and party. Once a month, I go to the club, have some really nice feast with my friends. So the ISKCON devotee was so smart. He told the producer, you go once a week to the, hang out with your friends, and you may dance once a week, if that. And once a month, you go to the club and have a nice, luxurious food. So he looked at the producer and he said, I do that 3 times a day. I sing and dance and enjoy a feast 3 times a day in the temple. So who's really happy? Am I really happy or are you happy? You are doing it so irregularly. Your happiness is dependent on once a week, once a month going to the club. Maybe if your maybe if your song is successful and is a hit, then you will feel happiness. So the devotee told him, every day I do this. Every day I sing. Every day I dance. Every day I eat prasadam. I'm happy every day, not once in a week, once in a month. So this is the position of devotees. They're always blissful because they are engaged in Krishna conscious activities. So why should you be surprised that devotees are not happy? Devotees means happiness. A devotee is never morose. A devotee is not thinking, oh my God, what is going to happen to me? So Krishna says in the 22nd and 23rd shloka, the living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the 3 modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil among various species. So if a mosquito goes and sits on a cow, the mosquito is not going to drink milk. The mosquito is going to drink blood. Because that's the nature of the mosquito. It's habituated to drinking blood. Even though milk is far more nutritious probably for the mosquito than the blood. So essentially this 22nd and 23rd shloka is introducing the concept of gunas. You will do what you do because of the influence of sattva gun, rajagun and tamagun. Therefore Krishna is saying the living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the 3 modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus, he meets with good and evil among various species. So, because of the 3 gunas, we experience ups and downs in life. We also experience ups and downs in consciousness when we keep changing bodies. Human body in one birth, mosquito body in another birth, maybe a plant body in another birth. Like this, our consciousness is swinging up, down, 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 down. So Krishna is saying all of this is because of the influence of Sattva Guna, Raja Guna, and Tamo. Yet in this body, there is another, a transcendental enjoyer who's the Lord, the supreme proprietor, who exists as the overseer and permitter. Upadrashta Anumanta is the two words Krishna uses in the shloka. Krishna says, I oversee what you do and I permit whatever desires you have, provided you have the credits for it. So Krishna is saying, whatever the soul is desiring or whatever the body and the mind and the intelligence is dictating, Krishna is simply reciprocating with whatever the desires are. So all these desires, the material desires, do not come from Krishna. They come due to the influence of the three gunas. Therefore, the next chapter, the 14th chapter, Krishna is going to focus and shift his attention to these three gunas, Sattva Guna, Raja Guna, Tamo Guna. So that is how powerful these gunas are, that they force the soul to experience all kinds of things under their influence. So how are you changing bodies? When the soul has a desire, then Paramatma sees to fulfill this desire, what kind of body does the soul need to occupy? What kind of machine should I give this soul? The machine of butterfly, the machine of an elephant, the machine of a human form. And once the Lord sees what is your desire and what kind of body you need to fulfill that desire, then he instructs Maya Devi to give that particular type of body so that the soul can fulfill its desire. Now, this is called covered consciousness, contaminated consciousness, and it is contaminated by the three gunas. So if the soul says, I want to be a devata, then Paramatma has to give the soul a chance to occupy a body and accumulate so many pious points that the soul ultimately takes and occupies a body of a devata. So it is desire that is contaminating our existence. If we purify our desire by staying connected to Krishna, then the soul will always be in higher levels of consciousness. So this is how the soul gets a new body, because of its desire. Bharat Maharaj became a deer because of his intense desire to continue that relationship that he had established with that baby deer. He didn't want that relation to break. But he didn't realize that deer has already gone. It will occupy a new body. That deer will continue its journey. Each soul has already decided its future journey. You may think, oh, my husband is going to go with me or my child is going to go with me. Wake up. Each soul has determined its own journey for the future. So in this case, we have to save ourselves first, in the sense, we have to come to the realization that we are not this body. The soul is meant to serve Krishna. And if we begin our journey in serving Krishna, then we can start helping other souls also serve Krishna. So this particular shloka, Krishna is saying, Kshetra kshetrajnayorevam antaram jnana chakshusha bhuta prakriti moksham cha ye viduryanti te param. Those who see with eyes of knowledge the difference between the body and the knower of the body. Body is kshetra. Knower of the body is kshetrajna. and can also understand the process of liberation from bondage and material nature, attain to the supreme goal. Somebody who understands the difference between what is jnana and what is jnana. Jnana means you know that the soul is trapped in this body, and in order to liberate the soul has to focus on performing spiritual activities. But to do that, it has to use this body. So the soul has to become the master. And our target is to go back to Krishna. So Krishna is saying this is actually real knowledge. When you realize that the body is just a machine that the soul has occupied, and the soul has to aspire to go back to its spiritual body. That means going back to Krishna. So at that time, when we are properly situated, then we will go back to the spiritual world. So after learning all of this, what is Kshetra, Kshetrajna, Prakriti, Purusha, Jnana, Jnana? Why do we still continue doing things that don't help us spiritually? Krishna says that is because of the three gunas. They have such a tight control over you. If you don't understand how the gunas are operating on you, then it's going to be very difficult for you to escape this body and go back to the spiritual world. That means unless we learn to do bhakti, we cannot be released from this body. So that is the conclusion of chapter 13. Actually, chapter 13 is a pretty technical chapter. It's not very easy to understand. So we've not covered many shlokas, because the most important thing, takeaway for us from this is that we need to understand that we are eternally servants of Krishna. And as servants, we are supposed to please the master. How do we please the master? By following his instructions. How do we know what his instructions are? Because you are not on the battlefield with Arjuna. You're not there in front of Krishna, where he's giving you personal instructions. How do you satisfy Krishna? When you satisfy Guru, you automatically satisfy Krishna. And if Guru says, chant your rounds every day, then that is what we will do. If Guru says, observe Ekadasi fast, then that's what we will do. If Guru says, take some seva in the temple, then that's what we're going to do, because that's what pleases Guru. So whatever pleases Guru automatically pleases Krishna. So we don't need to make a separate endeavor to please Krishna. Simply by pleasing Guru, you have pleased Krishna. Krishna is happiest when you're serving his devotees. That's why he says, better than doing bhakti to me, you do bhakti to my devotee and serve my devotee's devotee. I'll be very happy. Why? Do you know why? Because we have accepted that we want to be in a subservient position. We are not thinking, I am qualified, I can go serve Krishna directly. We are always in the mood. Humility says that I am not qualified. I don't know who Krishna is. Prabhupada said this often. He says, I don't know who Krishna is. So humility means, I don't know who Krishna is, but I have a living Guru. Let me do my best to serve my Guru to the best of my abilities. And in this way, please him and learn to make some progress on the spiritual path. So this is the conclusion of this particular chapter. What is the single word summary for today's chapter? That was on the poster. The 13th chapter, single word summary. Paramatma. Do you know why? See, you've been put in this jail cell, right? This body is like a jail for you. You have to exit this body. Who's going to teach you how to exit this body? You've made so many mistakes. You've committed so many sins. And if you're in jail, you need the help of an attorney. You need legal advice, no? To fight against the government. and put up a strong case and get you released from this jail? Who's going to put up a strong case for you? The Lord himself. The Lord himself is going to go to Yamaraj and say, don't touch my devotee. Because she's waking up early in the morning every day. She's doing her chanting. She's honoring Prasadam every day. She's observing Ekadasi every day. He or she. So Krishna puts forth a strong case for you to be left alone by Maya Devi and Yamaraj. He says, don't touch my devotee. They are under special care. So Krishna actually comes to your rescue as Paramatma, provided you connect with him. So if we want Krishna as our legal counsel and attorney, then we have to start chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. By chanting constantly, you are calling to Krishna. And therefore Krishna has taken over your life. And it doesn't matter. To Krishna, it doesn't matter how many sins you committed, how violent you were, etc., etc. It doesn't matter to Krishna. He does not look at your past. He's looking at what have you done now. Have you served him? Have you surrendered to him? Have you offered your love and affection to Krishna? Then Krishna is very much interested in relieving you of all of your past sinful activities. That is the most important lesson for a devotee. Krishna will wipe out all of your sins. You need not worry. You do your duty of chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Constantly we should be chanting. Yes, we should also chant on the beat, so we are counting our chanting. But after you're done with your designated rounds that you've committed to, then constantly you should be chanting the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Actually, you're calling to both Srimati Radharani and Krishna simultaneously. So this is the way to Krishna's heart. So from sadhana bhakti, we can move to prema bhakti. Just like Narada Muni did it in 4 months. He was just 5 years old. Prahlad Maharaj heard all Harikatha only when he was in the womb. So he came out as a devotee. Training was given in the womb itself. So he came out as a great devotee of the Lord. Dhruva Maharaj, his approach was a little bit different. He was angry, he was upset with his father. And he went in search of the Lord because he wanted a better kingdom than his father, more wealth and more respect than his father and his grandfather. But when he saw the Lord, he changed his mind. He said, what was I thinking? Why was I looking for a better kingdom when I found you? So when you find Krishna, you'll stop looking for anything else, That is the beauty of the all-attractive one. He's so attractive, you'll lose interest in everything else. The only thing that matters to you is Krishna and Krishna and Krishna. Yes, in that process, we do not abdicate our duties and responsibilities to our family. We do not do that. But that's not what Krishna is instructing in the Bhagavad Gita. But he's just saying, always think of me. Man mana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. So always think of me. If you can't think of me, then become my devotee. If you can't become my devotee, then at least worship me once in a while. If you can't worship me, then at least bow down to me. And this way you begin your journey. What does Krishna want? To always think of Krishna and never forget Krishna. That's what he wants. So I'm sure all of us can do that, right? Simply by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So I'd like to encourage everybody to come 10-15 minutes early so you can also chant with your heart. Think of Krishna when you're chanting, all of us. Yeah, pretty soon we'll be inviting you for morning chanting also, once this 18-day session is done. Yeah. So thank you very much. Is there any questions from anyone on this particular chapter?
Mataji,
Yes.
Mataji, could you please place the recordings in the group?
Which group are you in?
This group, this particular WhatsApp group, 18 days.
18 days, right? What is the name of the group? Can you tell me?
Yes, Mataji, I'll just tell.
Yeah, because I think there is a general group. I don't think we are posting it in the general group. Have you subscribed to our channel?
No, Mataji.
Okay. Chinmay, can you please post the link in the chat?
It is 16 round Girdari circle, Mataji.
18 days Gita course English.
18 days.
Gita course English.
Okay, 1 second. I'm just searching for it. Okay. Yeah. Are they posting anything at all in that group?
No, they're not posting any of the recordings. Only the quiz links.
Only the quiz links. Acha, okay. All right, I got it. The channel is posted in the chat. Can you just subscribe to the channel? And I'll make sure that one of the devotees is posting the links to all the recordings in that group.
Okay, Mataji.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
I'm not in that group, so I wasn't aware that it was not being posted. So, but I will talk to the devotee who's managing that group to post the class recordings. Yeah. But in the chat, you can just go to, if you subscribe to the channel, you can automatically go to the channel and have access to all the recordings. Yeah.
But how to subscribe to the channel? They'll put some video, then only I can subscribe. YouTube.
Are you able to see the chat in Zoom right now?
I am able to see the chat, but they are posting only the quiz links. There is no YouTube
in
in
Zoom,
it.
in Zoom, I'm saying, not in WhatsApp. In Zoom,
Asha,
just
Zoom.
now, a link has been posted to the YouTube channel.
Okay. I'll just check it.
Yeah, just check it. Just click on it and you hit subscribe. And anytime the videos are posted.
No. Yes, I got it.
You got
Thank
it?
you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if anybody else wants access to the recording, you can kindly just subscribe. It's a little easier to get access to the recordings. Okay. Thank you, Jyoti Mataji. Anybody has any questions? Okay, 1 second. If the journey of the soul is fixed, then what's the need of performing all these duties? Can't we just relax and leave? No. Journey of the soul is not fixed. It is only fixed if it is your desire. So if you change your desire, then you can go back to the spiritual world. Akarma does not mean inaction. Akarma means all action for the pleasure of Krishna. So if the question is our journey predestined? Yes, as long as we were not Krishna conscious, then based on our past karma and our destiny is determined. But you can change your destiny. You can change your prarabdha karma. Also, Krishna can change it. Krishna says all your sanchipta karma is wiped out by him when you chant his holy names. So the only way to change the trajectory of the soul's journey is to do bhakti. In the sense that if you want to go back to the spiritual world, then the fastest way of doing it is to do bhakti. So if your question is, can I give up everything and do only bhakti? Then you have the answer from Krishna already. Krishna tells Arjuna, you're not ready to do that. You stay where you are and do bhakti and fight. Think of me and fight. That's what Krishna says, right? Think of me and fight. Because that's what I'm instructing you. So good question. But the soul has to endeavor to go back to Krishna. The soul cannot say, Krishna, you give me how many ever bodies you want. I'll wait patiently until you call me. No. The soul has to make an endeavor. That is why you get the human body, so that the soul can make the fastest endeavor. by engaging in Krishna conscious activities. Is our personality, such as being an introvert or extrovert, related to the three gunas? Yes and no. It's not entirely related to the three gunas. It is also related to what's your upbringing, what's your value system, etc. Not always related to the gunas. I would say it's not exclusively related to the gunas. But you could say gunas have a predominating effect on you. So you can't say that, for example, you can't say that one person is completely under the control of sattva gun and therefore is quiet. It's very possible that the other aspect could also be true. Somebody could be under the control of sattva gun and could be quite talkative. Yeah, so your personalities are determined by a whole range of factors. Gunas would be one such influencing factor, but not the sole factor. Right? So, for example, I'm talking about myself now. I grew up in a household where children were expected to be quiet. My father was very strict. You couldn't just chat and talk and do whatever you want. Of course, later on he became very lenient, but when we were kids, we were meant to be quiet. So if you're meant to be quiet, then I will tell you what happened. Of the 5 children, 4 of us are quiet. The last one is not. By the time the last one came, my father was a little older, right? So my sister is the most talkative among the children. She could get away with things with my father that none of the other kids could have gotten away with. So it also depends on how you're raised and what expectation is set for you as a young child. Yes. It all depends on so many circumstances. Right? So it's not your guna alone. Definitely it's not guna. It was maybe what was encouraged and what you yourself pushed for. Okay. Interesting question. I had to think about that answer for a little bit. But thank you for asking that question. I don't think I had that question ever before. It's a new question. Okay. Definitely guna's influence, but there are a lot of other circumstances that dictate your personality. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. What if someone is a devotee but still engages in activities like theft? I don't quite understand how this works. Okay. I think Krishna answered that question in the 9th chapter when he says, Apichet Sudaracharo Bhajatam Ananya Bhag. So Krishna says that in my eyes, if somebody is practicing Krishna consciousness, they are started their purificatory process. So their anarthas will still be there with them. It will take them some time to get rid of it. But what I look for is their determination to continue practicing Krishna consciousness. And over a period of time, Krishna says they will be perfect and they will come back to me. Now, does that mean you should deliberately go out and thieve on the strength of practicing Krishna consciousness? No, then you'll have severe punishment from Krishna for that. If you're trying your best to stop your thieving activities, but somehow you're not able to control yourself, but still you're practicing Krishna consciousness and dependent on Krishna to help you, then Krishna is very, very forgiving. That's why Krishna says, declare it boldly, Arjuna, that my devotee never perishes. Yeah. Yeah. Devotee doesn't mean that we're all perfect. We are on this journey to curing ourselves. We have to take the medicine for a longer time. Maybe our medical, spiritual, what do you call it, condition is so deteriorated that the medicine has to be taken for a much longer period of time. Where some people may chant very nicely and very quickly they become good devotees. They are able to give up their anarthas quite easily. But for some devotees, it's a struggle. They have to do it again and again. They lose interest, then they'll come back. They drop it, and then they come back. We have examples of devotees who go through both journeys. Devotees who struggle to stay a devotee, and devotees to whom it seems to be so easy to be a devotee. I have seen that, both. Yeah. Yes, Jyoti Mataji, you have a question.
Mataji, earlier I had developed a habit that during the whole day, while I'm walking, doing any work, I used to be chanting Hare Krishna. But now I don't know, it does not enter my mind all the time, and this annoys me. And I don't even wake I have sometimes I wake up early and attend that chanting rounds with ISKCON Ayodhya. But sometimes I'm unable to wake up at that time. It's from 4:30 to 6 o'clock, 6:30, and sometimes I'm unable to do so. That upsets me. So how to be very firm? And 24 hours I want in my thought process, like that Amrish Maharaj, all his senses engaged in the service of the Lord. But that is very difficult to build.
That's a
I
very
get
nice
distracted very easily. I get distracted very easily.
Well, the first cure to the problem is acknowledging that you have a problem. The very fact that you're able to identify that you have a challenge itself is a good thing. Many of us don't even come to that stage. We're just happily doing something and not realizing that we're falling. But you're recognizing that you want to do more, but sometimes you're not able to do more. So maybe some of it has to do with your personal habits. Maybe if you're not able to wake up early, maybe you're not going to bed early, or maybe you have a late night, or maybe you're stressed out about something that happened during the day. It could be a multitude.
I sleep late.
You sleep late. Yeah, if you sleep late, it's going to be difficult to get up early consistently. So somehow or the other, you have to try and see if that is something that can be resolved. If you're working a night shift or something, then yeah, that is very tough. Then you do the best that you can by coming to Mangala Arathi on the days that you can. And to your question, do you want to be chanting all the time? You used to do it, and now
Mataji, I don't put in a lot.
Huh? What was
Yes, Mataji, I used to be doing all the time. Even while I'm going for a walk or something, I'm chanting in my mind. But now, these these worldly hassles. I feel like kicking these worldly hassles. Get aside and let me focus on the lotus feet of the Lord. But all these worldly hassles, they keep rotating in my head, and that's really very upsetting.
Yeah, it's only natural when you're going through some stress or anxiety. Yeah, you're trying to resolve it, and therefore you're not always focused on.
No, I am struggling to build my career. So out there also I have to focus. But I'm sure if I keep Krishna as the center of all my activities, then wo bhi ho jayega. I need not worry about it.
Yes, we can do our best. It's a progress, and it'll take some time. But you've recognized that you have a problem, and you can try to resolve it the best you can. So yeah, one way is to develop faith in Krishna that whatever happens, happens. I will not stop chanting the holy names of the Lord. So to be determined that way, yes, sometimes there will be distractions that come your way. You may not be able to handle it all the time, but do your best and leave the rest to Krishna. That's the best we can do. So there is no one particular solution to such things, right? You have to observe your sadhana, which it seems that you're doing. You have to observe your own conduct. You have to try and detach yourself from your mind so that you're not.
Mataji, actually, I watch reels of little Krishna at night, and I watch too many reels of that child animated reels of little Krishna, and I spend, I don't know, 2 hours, 3 hours on that, so I sleep late. And in the morning, I'm unable to wake up. Sometimes I wake up.
Yeah, screen time is not a good way to fall asleep. It's very difficult. You should fall asleep without the phone next to you. You will wake up naturally without an alarm. But many of us have the habit of taking the phone with us to bed, and that is very disturbing. Even if you are watching Krishna conscious reels, it does not matter. It disturbs your sleep pattern. Okay, so avoid. See if that helps you. Okay. There is a question about chanting is really difficult. So I assume you have a infant. Yeah, so children means they distract you, right? There are so many things you have to do to take care of a child. I always say you can play the chanting recording of Prabhupada when you're at home with your child. Therefore, at least in the background, your mind is somehow connected to chanting the holy names of the Lord. Even if you're not able to pick up the beads and do it, it is okay. See, a mother's duty is to the child first and foremost, right? So if the child is very young and the child is crawling or just started walking, then you're constantly on your feet running behind the child, trying to protect them, trying to keep them away from harm. So it's okay. If you're not able to chant sitting in one place with the bead in your hand or bead bag or clicker in your hand, you can purchase these clickers that you can just wear on your finger and constantly chant. Alternatively, hear Prabhupada's chanting. So that may help you as well. Yeah, that's a simple solution I'm giving, is to play the Hare Krishna Mahamantra or play some nice kirtan. And that kirtan will always be running in your mind, or the chanting will always be running in your mind. So you don't have to make an extra effort to remember Krishna because he's always there. Okay. Okay, there's one more question we'll take. If suppose all the Jivatmas are liberated and reach the Supreme Lord, who will stay in this material world? This question has been asked so many times, even of great acharyas. That will never happen. That will never happen. There will always be some child that is disobedient. There will always be some wayward child, right? It will be a small percentage, but still that small percentage in our eyes is like a huge number. Because we see in our own earthly planet, whatever, what is the population size now? What is the world population? Like 7 billion or 8 billion? Whatever, 3 plus 3, I guess it will be close to 7, 8 billion. So if our earthly planet is so crowded with so many Jivatmas who are struggling, what are the chances that all of us will get liberated and go back to Krishna? And like this, there are trillions of universes. Ours is just one speck. Ours is just one planet. Within this universe, there are trillions of planets. And like that, there are trillions of universes. So it will not happen because many Jivatmas are simply disobedient. So they will always try to push the boundaries and get away with as much as they can, or at least try to. It's a hypothetical question. All of the Shastras indicate that that has never happened. There has never been a time where Jivatmas have not disobeyed the Lord. Yeah. Since time immemorial, there are certain set of Jivatmas that are Nitya Baddhas. They are trapped. Okay. All right, I think we will close for the day. We will meet you tomorrow to learn about the 3 gunas. Vancha kalpatarupyascha kripa sindhubhyev cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrind ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Gurudev ki jai, Shri Shri Gaur ki jai. Thank you.